All right, first up we have the iconic Dame recipe, fish and chips. This is the touchstone of our restaurant. It's the most iconic thing we have on the menu. Never leaves the menu. We do run out occasionally because we sell so many orders. At its core, it's a piece of cured hake that's been deep fried in a batter with vodka and rice flour in it to lighten the batter, make it really airy and crispy. Lots of baking powder in there too, which puffs up the batter, gives it this stalagnite sort of characteristic, makes it super tasty when you bite into it. We'll serve it with some fries, or some chips, I should say, proper English ones that have been cooked twice first, once in salted water, once in oil at a cool temperature, and then fried a la minute. A very delicious creamy tartar sauce, some malt vinegar as is tradition, and lemons. No ketchup allowed here. First step, once we have the hake, is to cure it. We'll do that by adding some coarse salt and some lemon zest to both sides of the fish. It serves two functions. The first one is to add the lemon zest flavoring into the fish. The second is to pull out the moisture from the fish so that when we fry it, it's firmer. It doesn't leach so much of its liquid into the batter. That's what allows it to stay extra crispy. So once we've dusted it with the salt, it's also a really nice way of seasoning the fish from the inside. We'll add flaky salt at the end when it comes out of the oil. But this way they're seasoning on the inside too. So we've zested and salted the fish. Now we'll let this sit in the refrigerator for up to 2 hours to pull out some of that moisture. Then we'll dry it on some paper towels and get ready to prepare the batter. Okay, to prepare the tartar sauce, we'll start with a base of creme fraiche. Which brings a nice acidity and creaminess to the proceedings. And we'll add in a little mayonnaise or garlic aioli. Both work beautifully. Plenty of chopped dill. You don't want to shy away on the dill flavor. It's the best part of the tartar. Some chopped chives to bring some allium characteristic to it. A little shallot for crunch. Some capers, bring a nice brininess and saltiness. And a little cornichon. Same thing, all chopped up together. We'll add a little bit of lemon zest as well. There's a lemon zest in a lot of the recipes we use because it brings a lot of freshness and lift to the recipes. Now just mix all this together nice and gently. And there you have it. Delicious. Okay, so we'll start with the potatoes. We've peeled them and we're going to cut them into large batons. First, we'll cook them in salted boiling water. The idea of bringing the water to the boil first is to break as many cell walls as you can on the outside of the potato so that when you start to fry it in the oil, it'll absorb a lot more oil and will get extra crispy. We're increasing the surface area of the potato. More generally, we want to use potatoes that aren't too creamy and don't have a particularly high moisture content. We want to use quite dry potatoes. We also don't want anything that has too many developed sugars in it because the fries will caramelize before they can get crispy. The low moisture content potatoes is the way to go. We'll cut them into large chunks, top and tail. And I think, well, you can get machines that do this for you, but it's very nice to have the rustic charm of cutting them by hand. We'll just soak them in cold water for a moment just to remove some of the starch. If the potatoes are too starchy, then the fries will be creamy and they won't get crispy, which is not what we want. You can soak these for up to 24 hours. Keep removing the starch. After the potatoes have been soaking, we're now going to boil them. And allow these potatoes to cook until they're tender all the way through. You don't want to pull them out when they're still crunchy. You want a nice, soft, almost mashed potato-esque texture. We're going to pull them out, put them on a flat tray, and then go straight into the fridge. And that'll stop the cooking process as quickly as possible. Our potatoes have been boiled and then chilled in the fridge, overnight preferably. And now we're going to par fry them the first time. So we have the oil at 300 degrees, neutral oil, and we're going to gently, and be very, very careful at this stage because the oil is life-changingly hot, lower them into the fryer oil. Very important if you're doing this at home to make sure you don't fill the pot higher than halfway, because with the moisture from the potatoes, it'll start to bubble up. Okay, and now we'll leave the potatoes to cook until they start to go a little golden brown. Now the fries have come to the end of their blanch in the 300-degree oil. We'll remove them. They've started to get crispy. They're a little bit golden brown, but not too much. Remember, we're going to fry them another time at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and that'll get them super crispy on the outside. They're still creamy on the inside. At this point, we just want to remove them with a slotted spoon and pop them onto a paper towel. That'll help to drain some of the excess oil. You can see these little bits around the edges that get super, super crunchy. These are the most delicious parts. We'll allow these to chill for a few hours till they come down to room temperature. And then when we're ready to finish the dish, we'll fry the potatoes again at 375 degree Fahrenheit to get them super crispy on the outside. Okay, now we're frying the potatoes for the second time. Perfectly crunchy, nice and golden brown. We'll drain them of the hot oil onto a paper towel. This one will add a little bit of fresh sea salt to them as well. Soak up some of that flavor. Super crispy potatoes. And now we're ready to plate up. All right, so to make the batter, 5 ingredients: AP flour or regular flour, rice flour, some baking powder, and then light beer and vodka. So we'll start with the rice flour. Goes into the bowl. Then the regular flour. And it's important that we be exact with our measurements here. Baking powder next. Flying all over me. And the exact quantities are in the recipe book. Now we'll add our liquids. So we'll add our vodka. And what the vodka does, it lowers the evaporation point of the batter. Ethanol, which is the predominant ingredient in vodka, evaporates at 79 Celsius, whereas water evaporates at 100 Celsius. So this will bring down the temperature point at which this batter will evaporate, which in turn will mean when it hits the hot oil, it will form its shell much quicker. And then we'll go in with the beer. I'm going to be careful not to overwork this batter too much. I'm going to incorporate the flour into the beer and the vodka. And this frothy bubbles, we want to work pretty hard to make sure the bubbles stay in the batter. The batter now is ready to use straight away. As it sits in the fridge for longer and longer, the bubbles that come from the beer and the reaction with the baking powder will start to evaporate and the batter will go flat. And if that happens, we have to throw it away and make a new one. So we make this at the restaurant every hour or so. And now we're ready to fry the fish. The piece of hake that we've had curing for a couple of hours, we've patted it dry. Now we're going to dip it into the batter. You see, the batter may look thick, but you'll see when it goes into the oil how light and airy it becomes. And then a couple times, and then very gently let the batter drain and then lower it in. We'll allow the fish to cook for 5 to 10 minutes until it's nice and cooked through on the inside and the batter is golden brown. Okay, so the fish is finishing frying. It's golden brown on the outside. and just cook through on the inside. The best way to check this is to use a thermometer. Check the internal temperature somewhere between 120 and 140 Fahrenheit. It means it's nicely cooked through and not overcooked. You can see when we pull it out, it's formed all these little stalagmites around the edge, and that's the baking powder in the batter getting really, really light and crispy. So now pull this out. We'll allow it to rest and cool down a little bit, and then we'll season it with some Maldon salt and some vinegar. And that's the fish. Alrighty, so now we have the fish fried, the potatoes fried. We'll get ready to plate up. In the traditional British sense, we'll plate it on a piece of newspaper. Big, generous pile of the fries. Piece of the fish on top. Scattering of Maldon sea salt, and it has to be some flaky form of sea salt. Lemon wedge. Tartare sauce. And vinegar. Now the vinegar is optional, but my preference is for dousing a little bit on top of the fish. And this is the signature fish and chips of Dame in New York City.